So I'm gonna actually try recording 4 here for the first time, but I'm gonna talk a little bit about a subject that I've approached, I think, multiple times on just like my stories and stuff. And I think you guys all know at this point that if I were to ever write a book, it would just be called The Magical Land of Elsewhere, where all the animals should live. But I was kind of reminded of that this morning. I reshared that photo of the red fox. So gorgeous. Oh my god, I love seeing foxes like that. Unfortunately, in wildlife rehab, you get so used to like only really seeing pictures of them when they're really sick and have mange and stuff. So when I see them just like in their prime looking gorgeous, I'm just absolutely stunned by how beautiful they are. But foxes actually are something that weirds me out. Like, I know that people have this kind of like big bad coyote complex, but foxes are usually actually portrayed as cute and cuddly in our culture. So I find it really weird how afraid people are of them, and just like how aversive. Like, I would just get so many calls of, I have a fox and I think the den is in my backyard, so you need to come get it and take it somewhere else. I mean, I always just want to know where people think, because this request happens so often. Like, you just need to come get it and take it where it's supposed to be, or elsewhere. The magical land of elsewhere, where all the animals live, just not near us. Or the amount of people that think that animals like somehow understand that this is your lawn. Like, fully have had people say to me like, oh, there's this raccoon in my backyard and blah blah blah, and he comes over the fence. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe you could just put him on the line and I'll just let him know that the fence marks your particular property. I'm sure he'll respect that. It's just such a ridiculous request, and I mean, it obviously comes from a huge place of entitlement, especially when we're talking about human-wildlife conflict in the city. I remember when I was working on my master's, I had previously focused a lot on human-wildlife conflict in places like Asia with elephants, where there's lives and livelihoods at stake. And then we talk about human-wildlife conflict in a city like Toronto, and the conflict is just people not liking it. And my advisor was kind of like, there's a word that I'm searching for, and I'm like, the word is entitlement. I know we're trying to be a little bit more academic than that, but you sound entitled as fuck. To just be like, it's in my space and I don't like it. So, but I mean, I always kind of try and like reverse psychology these people. I do think that you should always, I mean, as sarcastic as I can be about it, I think that you should always approach people from this place of care. I really think that a lot of people don't take well to being like bashed or being met with like anger or anything like that. But really the goal is to just inspire this care in people to act better in the future. So in sort of a funny way, like when people would say things like, oh my god, it's horrible, this fox is on my lawn and I don't want it there and I'm scared of it, even though they weigh like 10 pounds soaking wet. And I would just go like so far the other direction and be like, oh my god, you have a fox living on your property? That is, what an amazing thing to witness. I mean, wow, you just stand and drink your morning coffee and you see a fox family growing up? That's incredible. And then they're like, oh yeah. And then all of a sudden they're like Karen facade, like totally picturing like a 40-year-old woman with like, you know, the haircut that's like, let me speak to your manager. Can someone let this fox know that this is my lawn? And then they kind of start to like break down a little bit, like, oh yeah, they're pretty. But it's wild the amount of requests we get. Like, this squirrel is running on my trees, so can you just get it and bring it elsewhere? Man, just go live in a bubble somewhere, honestly. If we cannot learn to coexist, then, I mean, I know that humans can barely coexist with other humans, but really it's not that difficult to coexist with the animals that do live in this city. There just needs to be this like mutual respect and care. And just take a second to be appreciative. Again, literally, I'm not even, I mean, as much as I'm using it as sarcasm and joking to be like, oh, you're so lucky, I actually feel that way. If I had a fox family growing up in my backyard and I got to watch that and witness that every day, I would be so over the moon about it. Just like, that's incredible. And to just like really see the positive in these situations instead of always looking for like the can I speak to your manager moment. So I feel like people live so on the edge and are so triggered by such small things in their day, and it's like just try and see the good in it. Even if you have like a hawk hanging around, I mean, I've literally had people think that like a hawk's gonna eat their child before, and they're beautiful. I love watching hawks. I'm the kind of person that like, man, I'm gonna cause an accident. I see them on a traffic pole and I'm like, when I'm driving. But just, I think people need to work a little harder on not thinking that there is a magical land of elsewhere. We all live in the same spaces, and guess who's here first? It certainly was not us.